I was the guy who laughed at rain, who smiled when plans fell through. The kind of man who believed that life, no matter how messy or unpredictable, always worked itself out in the end. Friends would say I had a sunshine personality. My coworkers joked that I must be high on optimism. And honestly, maybe I was. For 32 years, nothing had ever really broken me. I met Emily on one of those strange, unplanned Tuesday evenings, you know, when life tosses you something beautiful without warning. I was buying flowers for my mom's birthday. She was standing in the same aisle, struggling to choose between tulips and daisies. I said, "If you're trying to break someone's heart, daisies are sneakier." She laughed. That laugh. It was like, if happiness had a sound. 2 years later, that sound would be replaced with a silence so cold it echoed. But back then? We were a dream. A slow, gentle unfolding of two people who just clicked. I never believed in soulmates before her. After a few months, I stopped even questioning it. We danced in the living room barefoot. We kissed in the rain once like we were in a movie. Even my friends, the most skeptical, hard-shelled men I knew, pulled me aside at our engagement dinner and said, "She brings out something in you we didn't know existed." I married her on a crisp autumn afternoon. She wore a deep ivory gown, simple and elegant, just like her. Her father teared up. Her mom said I was the best thing that ever happened to Emily. And I believed her. I believed everything. We moved into a 2-bedroom condo I'd been saving up for since I was 21. Nothing fancy, but we made it ours. Fairy lights, a cozy little reading nook by the window, and a coffee machine that worked only when you threatened it. Every morning, I'd wake up before her and just watch her breathe. I know that sounds weird, but it was real. She looked peaceful. Safe. I wanted to be the reason she always felt that way. For the first year, it was everything I'd hoped for. Until the day she stopped looking me in the eyes. That was when the smile started to crack. I didn't know it yet, but behind her sudden distance, her phone turned down, the extra, work trips, behind all of that was a truth that would reshape everything I ever thought I understood about love, trust, and myself. But at this point in the story, I was still smiling. Still telling my friends, "She's just tired lately, that's all." Still believing that fairy tales don't end in betrayal. God, I was innocent. It started with small things. You know how people say, "The devil's in the details." I used to laugh at that. Thought it was just one of those dramatic sayings people threw around when things didn't go their way. But now I know it's true. The first crack was her laugh. She still laughed at my jokes, but not with her eyes anymore. Then came the phone. Always flipped down. Always clutched a little tighter when I walked into the room. She used to leave it anywhere, kitchen counter, bedroom floor, sometimes even in the fridge once by accident. But now, it never left her sight. "Just work stress," she said. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Because if I didn't, I'd have to admit something was wrong. And for a guy who built his whole life around the idea that things always work out, admitting something was wrong? That was terrifying. She started working late more often. "Deadlines," she said. "Teams behind schedule." She wasn't in tech. She was a graphic designer at a boutique firm. Small team. Laid-back schedule. But again, I smiled. "You got this," I'd say. "Come home when you can." I'd cook dinner. Sometimes leave it warm for her in the oven. She'd eat in silence, or not at all. She used to talk to me about everything. Now she talked around me. And I noticed her scent changed. It wasn't her perfume. It was something else. Cologne? Cheap hotel soap? I didn't want to think about it too hard. My brain would get close, like it was connecting dots, and I'd pull it away. Like a hand near a flame. Then one night, she came home at 1:45 a.m. I was still up, pretending to be asleep on the couch. She froze when she saw me. "Hey," she said, too casual. "Long night?" I asked. She nodded. We went out after the deadline. A few drinks. Her voice cracked on. Drinks. I looked at her. Really looked. Smudged lipstick. Hair too neat for a rough night. A scent I didn't recognize. And her eyes, those eyes, didn't meet mine. I didn't confront her. I smiled. That's who I was. The man who smiled through storms. Who didn't make accusations without proof. But I started paying attention. It wasn't love anymore. It was reconnaissance. And the next thing I found shattered everything. The night I checked her phone, I wasn't planning to. I swear I wasn't. I'm not the jealous type. I never believed in snooping. I used to think, if you need to check their phone, the relationship is already over. God, I wish I'd held on to that. But something broke in me that night. I think it was the way she kissed me on the forehead before going to bed. Not on the lips. Not in the eyes. Just mechanical. Like checking a box. Like kissing a child goodnight. She went to sleep quickly, like guilt never touched her soul. And me? I laid there beside her, blinking at the ceiling, heart pounding like a hammer in an empty hall. At 2:13 a.m., I slipped out of bed and walked into the living room. Her phone was on the charger, screen facing the wall. I stood there for 5 minutes. Just staring at it. Then I picked it up. Her password hadn't changed, still my birthday. October 17th. Cute, right? The lock screen opened. What I saw first wasn't the messages. It wasn't the photos. It was the do not disturb icon in the corner, active. Always active after 9 p.m. Always hiding. I opened her messages. And I swear to you, my hands were shaking. My thumbs slipped twice. The thread was titled Blackheart. E. Not a full name. Just a single initial. That was enough. And inside that thread was everything I never wanted to see. Photos. Inside jokes. Plans. His name. His voice memos. The little, good morning, text I used to send her, now being sent by someone else. I can't stop thinking about last night. Wish you were lying next to me instead of him. He doesn't even see you like I do. My chest caved in. The final punch? A selfie she sent, wearing my hoodie. The one I gave her on our third date, the one that still smelled like me. She wore it in his bed. There's a kind of pain that doesn't feel like anything. It's not sharp. It's not even hot. It's just cold. Numb. I put her phone down, walked back to the bedroom, and stared at her. She looked so peaceful. I wondered how many nights she fell asleep like that, while I laid awake beside her believing in fairy tales. I didn't wake her. I didn't scream. I just stood there for what felt like forever. And then I smiled. But for the first time in my life, it was hollow. She made pancakes the next morning. From scratch. With blueberries. She hadn't done that in months. Surprise, she said, sliding the plate in front of me like nothing happened. Like she hadn't whispered, I miss your hands on me. To a man who wasn't her husband less than 48 hours ago. I looked at her, really looked. There was a sparkle in her eyes that didn't belong to me anymore. You okay? She asked. You're quiet. I nodded. Just tired. She smiled. She was so good at it, smiling. The kind of smile that could melt tension. Calm storms. Sell lies. It hit me then. I didn't know this woman. Not anymore. Her laugh wasn't mine. Her scent wasn't mine. And her love? It had been handed to someone else like a glass of wine on a balcony I'd never stood on. She sat across from me and started scrolling through her phone. Probably texting him. My chest was on fire, but my face was porcelain. I ate the pancakes. I told her they were perfect. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her in a burst of rage. I wasn't going to cry in front of her or beg for answers she would twist anyway. I was going to do something she never expected. I was going to act like I didn't know. Like I was still the smiling fool she thought I was. Because there's something dangerous about a man who's always been joyful. When he finally stops smiling, you don't see the explosion coming. The best lies wear a smile. And so I gave her exactly what she expected, me. The man who never raised his voice. The man who kissed her cheek every morning. The man who always believed the best in people, even when the worst stared him in the face. Except now, that man was just a mask. And behind it? I was watching. I was listening. I was recording. I bought a cheap burner phone. Set it up to receive auto-forwards of her messages. Took me less than an hour. She'd left her phone unlocked again while taking a shower, same birthday password. I added my email as a backup. She never noticed. I signed up for a storage app, the kind that hides behind a calculator icon. Every photo, voice memo, location ping, and message she sent to E went into that vault. I knew where he lived now. I knew what kind of cologne he wore. You smelled like him last Tuesday. Did you know? I wanted to ask. I knew they had a hotel booked for the following Friday. I even knew she used my credit card to pay for it. But the worst? She told him she'd never smiled more than when she was with him. That was when my hands started to tremble. Not from sadness, no. But from the kind of heartbreak that turns into steel. Let her laugh in his arms. Let her keep the memories. I was done hoping. Done explaining away signs. Done carrying a love that she traded for lust in a hotel bed. I was building something now. Not a confrontation. Not a scene. A reveal. The kind you only get to play once in a lifetime. And when it came, she wouldn't just lose my trust. She'd lose the version of me that once would have forgiven her. By the time Friday came, I was no longer a man in mourning. I was a man with a plan. She thought she was leaving town for a girls' retreat. I knew the truth, the weekend was for him. I let her kiss me goodbye. Let her pack that new lingerie I hadn't seen before. Let her smile and lie to my face one last time. I'll be back Sunday night, she said. Don't forget to water the plants. I nodded. What she didn't know was that I had already booked the room right next to theirs. Same hotel. Same floor. I even requested a room with a partial view of the rooftop restaurant, her favorite. But that wasn't the highlight. The real setup was what I left behind at home. A neatly folded stack of papers on the kitchen counter. Screenshots of her texts. Hotel booking confirmations. A timeline of her betrayal. And lastly, a notarized notice of separation. All of it in a bright red folder with a sticky note that read, "Since you like surprises so much, here's mine." By the time she'd read it, I'd already be at the rooftop restaurant. Not to cause a scene. Not to expose her in some screaming match. No. I just wanted to look her in the eye one last time. Right in front of the man she left me for. I wanted her to know that I didn't just find out. I watched it unfold. And I let her walk straight into her own downfall. She thought she was in control. She had no idea the final move had already been played. 8:25 p.m. Ocean breeze. Soft music. A chilled glass of white wine in my hand. I sat at the rooftop restaurant, facing the perfect angle, the kind where you can see everything, but no one notices you. At 8:31 they arrived. She looked radiant. New dress. Curled hair. Her favorite lipstick. He wore a crisp white button-down, and that smugness men wear when they think they've won something that was never theirs. They didn't see me. Not yet. They were seated 2 tables over, near the edge of the terrace. Candles flickering. Waiter pouring champagne. She laughed at something he said, that fake laugh I used to think was real. She leaned forward, touched his hand, and I swear I saw her eyes sparkle. And that's when I stood up. Not with fury. Not with pain. With peace. I walked slowly to their table. Her back was to me. He saw me first, confusion on his face. She turned, and time stopped. Her smile collapsed into horror. Champagne glass trembling in her hand. "Hi, Emily," I said, calm as the moon above us. Silence. "Who's this?" he asked, clearly caught off guard. She swallowed hard. That's my husband." I smiled gently. "Soon to be ex." The man froze. "You told me you were separated." "She told you a lot of things," I said, eyes still on her. "Some true. Most convenient." She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her world was imploding in slow motion. I reached into my coat pocket and set a single folded paper between them. The red folder would be waiting back home, but this was just the ribbon on the gift. She opened it. "Read the first line." Her hands began to shake. "You are hereby notified that I am initiating formal proceedings to dissolve our marriage on the grounds of adultery." She looked up at me, eyes glassy. "Why?" she whispered, barely audible. "Why are you doing this?" I leaned in, close enough for her alone to hear. "Because I'm done letting people ruin things I built with my whole heart." Then I turned to the man and said, "Enjoy the view. You paid more for this than you'll ever realize." And I walked away. I didn't turn back. Not when she cried. Not when he started asking her questions. Not when I heard her voice crack saying, "Please don't leave." Because she already did. Long before that night. The elevator ride down was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that aches, but the kind that heals. I walked through the lobby. The doorman gave me a polite nod. I nodded back. Outside, I let the sea breeze hit my face like a baptism. She wasn't following me. I didn't need her to. When I got back home, the red folder was still on the kitchen counter, untouched, unopened. Because she hadn't come back. Not yet. And I hoped, in that moment, that she never would. I poured myself a drink. Sat on the couch. No TV. No music. Just silence. But for the first time in my life, it didn't feel empty. It felt clean. The next day, the text started. "Can we talk? Please don't do this. He means nothing to me." Then came the missed calls. 27 of them in one afternoon. Then the voicemails. She was crying. She was yelling. She was bargaining. But I didn't respond. Because I'd already done the talking. With my actions. And nothing I could say would scream louder than the sound of that paper sliding across the restaurant table. By day 3, she showed up at the condo. I didn't answer the door. She sat outside for nearly an hour. I watched her through the peephole. At one point, she looked up, like she felt me watching. She looked like a ghost of the girl I once knew. Mascara streaked. Hair undone. That confident posture gone. She held a note in her hand. Slipped it under the door. I didn't read it. I just picked it up, walked to the fireplace, and burned it. Because I wasn't interested in her words anymore. Only her choices. A week passed. No more texts. No more calls. No more footsteps outside my door. Just quiet. And then, I got a message from a mutual friend. "Hey, saw Emily today. She looked like she hadn't slept in days." I didn't answer. But he sent another. "She said she's staying with her cousin? Said the other guy bailed on her?" That made me pause. I wasn't surprised. Not really. Guys like him love the thrill, not the wreckage. He got what he wanted. She gave him the version of herself meant for me. But now she was sitting alone with a suitcase, and no more fairy tales to fall into. I went to the storage unit the next morning. Opened it up. Her things were still boxed, labeled with care. Emily's books, Emily's sweaters, Emily's keepsakes. There was one box labeled Us. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I left the storage key at the front desk of her cousin's apartment building with a note. "I kept your things safe. I couldn't do the same for your promises." That afternoon, she finally replied to the divorce notice. No fight. No apology. Just a quiet acceptance. That's when it hit me. It was really over. Not just the marriage, but the version of me that would have stayed, that would have begged, compromised, tried harder. He was gone. And in his place stood someone new. Not bitter. Not vengeful. Just awake. She had always told me I was too soft. But softness isn't weakness. It just means I loved honestly, fully, without a plan B. And that's exactly why she could never replace me. Because men like me don't come back. 2 months later, I was sitting at a cafe. Same corner seat I used to bring her to. Only this time, I was alone, and okay with it. There was sun in the air. Music playing softly from the speakers above. People laughing around me. And I realized something strange. I was smiling. Not the polite smile. Not the mask. A real one. The kind that starts deep in your chest, not because everything's perfect, but because you made it through. Because you survived the storm and found calm on the other side. Across the street, I saw a couple holding hands, laughing like kids. And instead of pain, I felt peace. I don't know where Emily is now. I don't check. Don't care. Maybe she's trying to rebuild. Maybe she's still rewriting the story in her head, trying to make herself the victim. Let her. I've stopped carrying her story. I'm too busy writing mine. Last week, I finally did something I'd been putting off for years. I booked a solo trip. No itinerary. No plan. Just me, a passport, and the freedom she thought I'd never have without her. She taught me how deep betrayal can cut. But unintentionally, she also taught me what healing feels like when you stop bleeding for people who enjoy the sight. And now? Now I smile. Not because life is perfect, but because I no longer share it with someone who made me question my worth. The man who never knew grief finally met it, and buried it beneath his own rebirth.